Welcome to Unit 5, Lesson 5. We're going to be discussing comparison problems with misleading language. The focus of this lesson is to represent and solve comparison word problems with misleading language. This will help us as we start to pick apart and identify information correctly in a word problem. So language and vocabulary can be sometimes misleading to students. For example, Jackson has 8 pencils. Jackson has 5 fewer pencils than Jesse. How many pencils does Jesse have? Now there are 2 ways that we could solve this problem. First of all, we used comparison bars at the beginning of this unit to determine whether we should add or subtract to find an answer, and those work pretty well. But I'd like to add one more tool to our toolkit. We're going to talk about comparison statements that will help solve a word problem. We changed the terms of the word problem to identify the other person in the problem. For example, restating Jackson has 5 fewer pencils than Jesse as Jesse has 5 more pencils than Jackson. This makes it clear that you should start with Jackson's 8 pencils and then add 5 more to find the number of pencils that Jesse has. When you use the word comparison, you're actually trying to identify which one has more and which one has fewer. Changing the language helps us understand which operation we should be using, addition or subtraction. Our friend Puzzle Penguin has a problem and we need to help him with it. Dear math students, as part of my math homework, I solved this problem. Carlos has 19 fish. He has 14 fewer fish than Daniel. How many fish does Daniel have? Here's what I did. 19 subtract 14 equals 5. Is my answer correct? Right? If not, please correct my work and tell me what I did wrong. Your friend, Puzzle Penguin. Well, let's change the language by using the different language. Daniel has 14 more fish than Carlos. Carlos has 19. How many fish does Daniel have? When we change it like that, it becomes clear that we're going to have to add 19 plus 14 to get the total number of fish that Daniel has. Daniel has 33 fish. Can we see the problem and how Puzzle Penguin made the mistake? If we change the language to a comparison language, we can solve it easily. Let's look at another problem. Solve the problem, label your answer. At the park, 4 of the children could not swing because there were not enough swings. There were 20 children at the park. How many swings were on the swing set? Let's change the language. First of all, remember the question is how many swings were on the swing set. There are 20 children at the park. 4 children could not swing. How many swings were there? Well, let's see if this will work. We could solve this equation by taking the 20 children that were at the park, subtract the 4 that could not swing because there weren't enough swings, and we have 16 swings. Let's see if our answer is correct. 16 swings, good deal. Now let's look at another one. It says solve the problem, label the answer. I'm always really careful to try to read the instructions so that I can do it correctly. Okay, Maylee took 1 step on each tile along the garden path. After she took 14 steps, there were 13 more tiles left to go. How many tiles were there along the path? So if we look at this, the question is how many tiles were along the path? Maylee took 14 steps. It looks like she had 13 more tiles to take steps on. So I'm assuming, as I look at this and add it together, if she took 14 steps and she needed to take 14 more or 13 more steps, we should add them to determine how many tiles were in the path, along the path. So let's look at our equation. 14 plus 13 equals 27 tiles. Let's look at the answer and see if we're correct. Yay, we are correct. Let's look at two equations that we're going to solve together and two that you will bring to class tomorrow that I would like you to solve on your own using some of the language and tools that we've been talking about. So it says here, solve each problem on a separate piece of paper, but I'm going to send with you tomorrow a copy of these word problems, and you're going to be able to solve them right on the paper. Let's look. It says an unknown smaller amount. So Daniel has 23 fish. He has 15 more fish than Carlos. How many fish does Carlos have? Well, let's change the language. Carlos has 15 less fish than Daniel. How many fish does Carlos have? Daniel has 23. We're going to subtract 15 from 23 because he has 15 more than Carlos, and our answer is 8 fish. 23 subtract 15 equals 8 fish. Now let's look at where we don't know exactly how many our total is, but we're going to have to figure it out by using the information available. Gina ran 12 laps. She ran 8 fewer laps than Bettina. How many laps did Bettina run? So Bettina ran 8 laps more than Gina. Gina ran 12 laps. We are going to add 12 plus 8, which equals 20 laps. Can you see, ladies and gentlemen, how easy it is when we change the language a little bit to make sure that we are answering the question and making sure that the language is easy for us to identify whether we're going to add or subtract. We will see you tomorrow. Please bring this information and we will work together to solve the equations. Thank you.